The rain had already swallowed the highway. Sheets of water crashed against the windshield, making the yellow lines vanish into the blur. Inside the bus, the hum of the engine was the only thing fighting the storm's roar. It was 12:37 a.m., and the last Gray Line bus from Portland to Ashgrove carried only 7 passengers. The driver, Earl Maddox, a grizzled man in his 60s, kept his jaw clenched, his pale eyes locked on the black road. He'd driven this route for 25 years. But tonight, something about the silence pressed harder than usual. At the very back sat Rachel Klein, 28, clutching her laptop bag like it was life itself. She was exhausted. Shift at St. Mary's Hospital, then the 2-hour ride home. But sleep refused to come. Something in her gut kept whispering, "Stay awake." Across from her, an old man in a trench coat muttered to himself, rocking gently with every bump. A teenage couple snuck kisses in the middle row. A woman in business attire scrolled through her phone with nervous, jerky motions, and then 2 seats behind, Rachel sat, a man she hadn't noticed when she boarded. Tall, still, face. Hidden beneath the shadow of his hood, his hands rested on his knees. Motionless, Rachel swallowed and turned away, forcing herself to stare out the rain-smeared window. But her reflection betrayed her. His gaze wasn't shifting. He was staring at her, directly. The bus hit a pothole. The lights flickered. For a split second, everything went dark. And in that flash of blackness, Rachel swore she heard footsteps above them. On the roof, the light snapped back. Earl cursed under his breath, gripping the wheel. Then it came again, thud, heavy, deliberate, as though someone or something was crawling along the roof of the moving bus. The teenage couple laughed nervously, pretending not to hear it. The businesswoman pressed her phone tighter to her ear, whispering something to herself. The old man muttered louder, rocking harder. Rachel's breath caught. She looked at the hooded passenger. He was smiling now, just a faint curl of his lips, as if he'd been waiting for this. Finally, he whispered. The bus jolted, slowing down, though Earl hadn't touched the brakes. The speedometer dipped. The engine groaned, like it was struggling against something unseen. Rachel stood, her voice trembling. "Driver, what's happening?" Earl didn't answer, because Earl Maddox was gone. The seat was empty. The wheel turned on its own. The passengers began to scream. Rachel froze, her eyes wide as the roof above her split open with a deafening screech. Metal bent inward. Cold rain poured through the cracks. 2 pale, skeletal hands reached down from the darkness, and the hooded man whispered again. This time loud enough for everyone to hear. "It found us." The sound was unbearable. Steel ripping apart like paper, nails or claws dragging across the roof of the bus. Passengers scrambled from their seats, screaming. The teenage couple clung to each other. The businesswoman dropped her phone. The old man in the trench coat covered his ears, rocking faster, muttering something that no one could make out. Rachel gripped the seat in front of her, trying to steady herself. Water poured in through the widening split above. She looked to the front, desperate for the driver, but the seat was still empty. No Earl, no control. The wheel twisted on its own, jerking the bus across the slick highway. The hooded man finally rose from his seat. He was taller than Rachel had realized, well over 6 feet. His movements were calm, deliberate, as though he'd been waiting for this moment. Rachel shouted at him, "What's happening?" The man looked at her, his eyes dark and cold. "It's not what's happening," he said. "It's what's coming." The roof gave one final, shuddering crack, then silence. The bus rolled forward. The storm outside still raged, but the thing above had gone quiet. Every passenger froze, listening. And then thud. Something heavy dropped to the back of the bus. The emergency exit door buckled inward. Rachel's chest tightened. She could barely breathe. The old man in the trench coat suddenly shouted, his voice raw and panicked. "It's the hollow one. We can't stop. Don't you understand? If we stop, we're dead." Nobody knew what he meant. But before anyone could ask, the emergency exit bent open with a screech of tearing metal. A figure stepped inside, dripping wet, its skin pale as wax, stretched too tightly over its bones. Its eyes were empty sockets, black and hollow, weeping streams of foul water that splattered the floor. The teenage girl screamed, so loud it pierced Rachel's skull. The creature moved without sound, without hesitation. It grabbed the teenage boy by the throat, lifting him effortlessly. His legs kicked, his nails dug into its arm, but it was no use. With a sickening snap, the boy's neck bent sideways. The girl shrieked as his body was tossed aside like trash. Blood sprayed across the seats. The hooded man didn't flinch. He just stared at the creature and smiled. Rachel stumbled backward, her voice breaking. "What the hell is that?" The hooded man finally answered. "The hollow one, and it's not here for him." He pointed straight at Rachel. "It's here for you." The teenage girl's screams filled the bus, raw and animal, as she crawled toward her boyfriend's lifeless body. Blood pooled across the aisle, mixing with rainwater dripping from the torn roof. Rachel froze, her heart hammering. The hollow one stood in the aisle, its head twitching in sharp, unnatural movements. Its skin rippled as though something beneath it was writhing. The stench of rotting lake water filled the bus. The hooded man stepped closer, his voice disturbingly. ".com. It doesn't kill without reason. It chooses. Always chooses." Rachel snapped at him, panic rising. "Why me?" The man tilted his head. "Because you're marked." The creature's eyeless face turned toward Rachel, though it had no eyes. She felt it looking at her. Her stomach lurched, and her vision blurred. For an instant she saw something impossible, a flash of herself, standing in the middle of a black lake, water up to her chest, dozens of pale hands clutching at her from below. She blinked, then the vision vanished. The hollow one lunged. Rachel stumbled backward, crashing into the businesswoman. Together they tumbled into the aisle, screaming. The thing's arm shot out, but the old man in the trench coat suddenly stood, holding a rusted hunting knife. With a wild cry, he plunged the blade into the creature's arm. The hollow one shrieked, a sound like drowning mixed with tearing metal. The windows of the bus rattled, some shattering instantly. The teenage girl covered her ears, blood dripping from her nose. The creature flung the old man across the bus with inhuman strength. His body slammed into the windshield, cracking it like spider webs. He slumped to the floor, unmoving. Rachel's throat burned. She couldn't breathe. The air was thick, heavy, as if the creature was sucking the oxygen out of the bus. The hooded man suddenly grabbed Rachel by the wrist, yanking her to her feet. His grip was ice cold. "You want to live? Then don't fight it." "What the hell are you talking about?" she cried. Before he could answer, the bus swerved violently. The wheels spun. The road tilted on. The gray line bus skidded off the highway, crashing through the guardrail. Metal screamed. Passengers screamed. Glass shattered. Rachel saw the world spin into blackness. The last thing she heard was the hooded man's whisper against her ear. "You were never supposed to survive tonight." Rain poured through the shattered windows as silence fell over the overturned bus. The world outside was nothing but black trees and the endless hiss of the storm. Rachel's ears rang. Her body ached, pinned against the aisle where she'd been thrown. Blood dripped down her forehead. She coughed, tasting iron, somewhere in the wreckage. The teenage girl sobbed hysterically. The businesswoman groaned, trying to pull herself free from twisted metal. The old man in the trench coat lay motionless near the windshield, his knife still clutched in his hand. Rachel forced herself to move, her limbs trembling. She turned. The hollow one was gone. The hooded man crouched nearby, impossibly calm, as if the crash hadn't touched him at all. He stared at Rachel with those dark, unblinking eyes. "You lived. That means it's not finished with you." Rachel tried to stand, her voice hoarse. What is it?" He leaned closer. "A collector. It takes what doesn't belong here. Before she could ask what that meant, a scream tore through the wreck. The businesswoman's legs were stuck under a crushed seat. She clawed at the wreckage, shrieking. Rachel crawled toward her to help. But then the woman's screams cut off. Her body went rigid, her eyes wide with terror. A shadow slithered across the bus floor. Too fast to be human. Rachel froze, her breath caught in her throat. The businesswoman's chest caved inward with a sickening crunch, as though invisible hands were crushing her. Blood spurted from her mouth. Her eyes rolled back. Then her body was dragged violently into the darkness outside through a shattered window. "Gone," Rachel screamed, stumbling backward. What the fuck was that? The hooded man only smiled faintly. "It's still hungry." The teenage girl clutched Rachel's arm, shaking uncontrollably. "We have to run, we have to get out of here, please." They crawled out of the wreckage into the storm. The forest loomed, black and endless, the highway nowhere to be seen. Behind them, the bus groaned as metal twisted. Something inside was moving, something big. The old man suddenly staggered out, blood running down his face. He still gripped the hunting knife, his eyes wild. "You can't run," he rasped. "It'll follow her. It always follows the marked." Rachel's stomach dropped. She didn't want to ask. She didn't want the answer, but she did. "Why me?" she cried. The old man's gaze fixed on her, filled with terror and something worse, recognition. "Because you've seen it before." Rachel's mind reeled. I don't remember." Thunder boomed overhead, drowning out her voice. From the wreck of the bus, a long, pale hand reached into the rain, and the hollow one began to crawl out. The storm swallowed the wreck behind them as Rachel, the teenage girl, the old man, and the hooded stranger stumbled into the forest. The trees were enormous, skeletal, their wet bark gleaming like blackened bones. The air smelled of mold and stagnant water. Every step squelched in mud. Every branch snapped like a gunshot. The teenage girl clung to Rachel, sobbing. "We're never getting out. We'll never shut her up." The old man hissed, his knife raised as if even sound might draw the creature closer. His face was ghostly pale, eyes darting to the shadows. Rachel snapped back, her nerves shredded. "She's just a kid." The hooded man walked ahead, silent, unbothered. His calmness was unnatural, infuriating. Rachel finally shouted over the storm, "You know what this thing is? You know. Tell us what it wants." The man stopped. Slowly, he turned, his voice low and steady. "It doesn't want. It takes, and it always takes back what belongs to it." Rachel's head pounded. "I don't even know what that means." The old man snarled, pointing the knife at her. "He's right. You've been touched. That thing won't stop until you're in its world. And if we stay with you, we're dead." Rachel's chest tightened, touched. "I don't even know this thing." The old man's eyes blazed, then explained the mark. Rachel froze. "The what?" The hooded man lifted a finger, pointing at Rachel's collarbone. She looked down. In the pale flashes of lightning, she saw a faint, blackened handprint burned into her skin. Her stomach dropped. She stumbled backward. No, that's not," the teenage girl screamed, suddenly. Pointing into the trees, something moved between the trunks, not running, not walking, gauding, dozens of pale shapes. Just outside the reach of the lightning, the forest went silent. Even the storm seemed to hold its breath. The old man's knife shook in his hand. Not one anymore. The hooded man's voice was almost reverent. It called the hollowed. The teenage girl sobbed. "What are they?" Rachel's voice was barely a whisper. "Eyes. They're watching us." As if in response, the shapes shifted closer. In the next flash of lightning, their faces became clear human faces, but hollow, empty sockets, mouths stretched unnaturally wide. Water spilled endlessly from them, drenching the ground. The girl collapsed in terror. Rachel pulled her up, but it was too late. One of the hollowed surged forward. its jaw unhinged with a sickening crack, impossibly wide. It swallowed the teenage girl's head whole. Her scream was cut short. Her body convulsed, then went limp as the hollow dragged her into the dark. Rachel screamed, reaching out, but the hooded man yanked her back. She was never going to make it. Neither will you, unless you stop fighting what's already inside you. The forest erupted with shrieks as the hollowed closed in from all sides. The old man raised his knife, but Rachel's voice shook with raw terror. We're surrounded. What do we do? The hooded man's eyes gleamed. You don't run. He stepped forward, pulled back his hood, and revealed that his throat had been slit wide open. His voice carried even without breath. You let it take you. The forest pulsed with inhuman screams. Dozens of hollow drifted between the trees, their eyeless faces glowing faintly in the dark, mouths leaking endless streams of black water. Rachel clung to a tree, shaking, her eyes locked on the hooded man, his hood down, his throat slit wide open. Yet he still spoke calm and clear, as though the wound didn't matter. You feel it, don't you? He asked softly. The pull, the water inside your lungs, the memory that isn't yours. Rachel gasped, coughing violently. And he was right. Her throat burned, her chest felt heavy, as though she were drowning on dry land. The old man with the knife staggered forward, blood dripping from a cut above his brow. She doesn't belong to you. She doesn't. He screamed at the hooded figure. The man tilted his head. You think this is mine? No, I'm only a voice, a reminder. Rachel's vision blurred. She saw flashes her younger self, maybe 8 or 9 years old, standing on a dock at night. A black lake stretched endlessly before her. Something rose from the water pale hands, dozens of them, reaching. A shape towering in the mist. A whisper. Rachel. She snapped back with a cry, pressing her hands to her temples. No, I've never been there. I don't remember this. The hooded man's smile widened. That's because it chose to let you forget, but the mark never forgets. The hollowed shrieked, stepping closer. The old man raised his knife, desperate. We have to move. We have to get away from them. Rachel staggered to her feet. Where do we go? The hooded man pointed deeper into the forest, his dead eyes unblinking. There's a road, not for cars, for them. Walk it, and you'll see where you belong. The old man spat. You can't trust him. He's one of them. Can't you see? But Rachel felt something strange. The pull inside her chest wasn't leading back to the bus or to safety. It was dragging her forward, toward the trees, toward the unseen road. Her hands trembled as she looked at the old man. If I don't go, it'll never stop, will it? His face crumpled. No, it'll never stop. The hollowed moved in closer, their bodies twitching, water spilling from their mouths. One reached forward, its nails slicing bark from a tree as it reached for Rachel. The hooded man leaned close to her ear, whispering, Do you know what the mark means? Rachel's voice cracked. No, it means you're not a survivor. Lightning flashed for the briefest instant. Rachel didn't see the forest. She saw herself submerged in black water, pale hands pulling her down. Her own body floating lifeless, her eyes hollowed out. She gasped, clutching her chest, and the vision vanished. When she looked up again, the forest path had changed. A narrow, winding trail stretched ahead, glowing faintly in the dark. The hooded man pointed. Walk, or drown here. The hollowed shrieked louder, rushing in. Rachel had no choice. She stumbled onto the trail, the old man yelling behind her, forcing his battered body to follow. The moment her feet touched the path, the forest went silent. But then, in the quiet, a new sound rose. Footsteps, dozens, maybe hundreds, all walking in time with hers. Rachel froze. The hooded man leaned close, his slit throat dripping black water, and whispered, Now you're in the hollow mile. The forest behind them was gone. Rachel turned, heart pounding, but there was nothing. No trees, no storm, no bus, only black mist stretching forever. Beneath her feet, the glowing trail wound forward like a pale scar across the void. Every step echoed, but it wasn't just her. The sound of other footsteps matched her rhythm, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Invisible, but close enough to hear. The old man staggered beside her, clutching his knife, muttering prayers under his breath. This isn't real. This isn't real. The hooded figure walked ahead, calm and steady. His slit throat leaked black water, dripping onto the road, leaving stains that sizzled against the glow. Rachel's voice trembled. Where are we? The hooded man didn't turn. Between mile only opens for the marked. Every step you take, you walk closer to the one who claimed you. Rachel's chest ached, heavy with phantom water. Her skin crawled with cold. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this. The man's laugh was hollow. None of them do. For a moment, Rachel thought she saw shapes in the mist people, hundreds of them, walking parallel to her on invisible paths. Their faces were blurred, their movements jerky, as though they weren't truly alive. The old man hissed, his voice sharp with terror. Don't look at them. They'll notice you if you look too long. Rachel jerked her gaze back to the glowing road, her heart hammering. Minutes or hours passed. There was no time here, only the endless sound of marching footsteps. Then the hooded man stopped. He turned slowly, his eyes sinking deeper into shadow. Do you want to know why it chose you? Rachel's breath caught. Tell me, you drowned. The words hit her like ice, her voice cracked. That's not true. I've never drowned. Never. The man tilted his head. Memory is a fragile thing. You were pulled from the water once, long ago, but the hollow one never let you go. The old man gripped Rachel's arm. Don't listen to him, he lies. That thing feeds on guilt, on fear. It wants you to believe you already belong to it. Rachel ripped her arm away. Her voice shook with fury and fear. Then why do I see it? Why do I remember the lake? Before the old man could answer, the footsteps around them stopped. Silence. The mist thickened, curling across the glowing path. From it, a figure emerged, a woman in a tattered dress, her hair dripping wet, her face pale as bone, her mouth gaped, open wider, wider, until her jaw split in two, tearing her head apart. The sound of rushing water roared in Rachel's ears. The old man screamed, raising his knife, but the woman lunged too fast. Her hand punched straight through his chest, tearing out his heart in a gush of blood. Rachel screamed, falling backward onto the glowing road as the old man's body collapsed beside her. The woman's head turned toward Rachel, her ruined mouth stretching into an impossible grin. Rachel scrambled back, her hands slipping in blood. The hooded man simply watched, whispering, almost lovingly, another hollow joins the mile. And the woman stepped closer to Rachel, her dripping hand reaching out. The woman's wet hand reached for Rachel, dripping with the old man's blood. Rachel kicked back, scrambling to her feet, her lungs burning with phantom water. Stay away from me, she screamed, though her voice sounded small against the endless void. The woman's ruined face split wider, her mouth stretching until her jaw nearly reached her chest. From that abyss came a sound Rachel knew too well, her own voice. Help me. Help me. Rachel froze, her stomach twisting. It wasn't just a scream, it was her childhood voice, the same tone she'd heard in the fragments of memory, standing at the lake's edge. Her knees buckled. No, that's not possible. The hooded man stepped closer, his slit throat spilling black water onto the road. It's not just possible, it's truth. Every hollow is someone who begged for help and was never pulled from the water. They become part of the mile, and now they want you to remember. The woman lunged. Rachel threw herself sideways, barely avoiding the dripping claws that slashed through the glowing road. Sparks of pale light scattered like fireflies. Behind her, the old man's body twitched. His eyes opened, but they were hollow now, black, sockets streaming with water. His chest gaped where his heart had been. Yet he rose, jerking unnaturally, his knife still in hand. Rachel choked on her scream. No, oh God, no. The hooded man smiled faintly. The mile takes everything. You can't fight it. The old man's mouth opened wide, water pouring out in torrents. His voice gurgled, echoing as if from underwater. You should never have survived, Rachel. She stumbled back, clutching her chest, the mark on her collarbone burning like fire. Her vision blurred again. A dock, a lake, small hands dragging her down, her lungs filling. Darkness closing in, then fingers yanking her back to the surface. A woman screaming her name. Her mother. Rachel gasped, reality snapping back. I didn't drown, I was saved, she shouted. The hooded man tilted his head, watching her with dead eyes. And that's why the Hollow One marked you. It doesn't forgive debts. The Hollowed swarmed closer, dozens of eyeless figures surrounding the road. Their dripping mouths whispered her name in unison. Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. Her chest tightened, her knees buckled. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Then suddenly she felt a hand grip hers. Warm, human. Rachel spun around and saw a man standing on the glowing road ahead. Not hollow, not mist, flesh and blood. He looked about 30, soaked to the bone, his eyes wide with desperate urgency. Run, he shouted, before it claims you're in. Rachel's mind reeled. Who are you? The man's voice cracked with grief. My name is Daniel Klein. I'm your brother. Her heart stopped. I don't have a brother, she whispered. Daniel's face twisted in agony. You don't remember? Because you survived and I didn't? The Hollowed shrieked all at once, the sound like a tidal wave crashing down. The hooded man smiled, stepping back into the mist. And now the mile shows its true hand. Rachel screamed as Daniel pulled her down the glowing road, the Hollowed chasing close behind. Rachel's lungs burned as Daniel pulled her down the glowing road behind them. The Hollowed shrieked, their footsteps pounding in rhythm, hundreds of drowned souls giving chase. The mist thickened. Faces flickered in it, blurred, broken, drowning, watching her run. Rachel gasped for air. This isn't real. You can't be real. Daniel glanced back, his soaked hair plastered too. His forehead, his face pale as death. I'm real enough. Real enough to remember what you don't. Rachel stumbled, her chest searing. The mark on her collarbone glowed like a brand, burning hotter with every step. What the hell do you mean? Daniel's voice cracked with grief and rage. That night at the lake when we fell in, you were pulled out. I wasn't. The words slammed into her like ice water. Rachel's mind reeled, visions flashing, fragments she had buried for years. The dock, the black lake swallowing her. Her mother's screams, a boy's hand gripping hers under the water slipping free, small fingers disappearing into the dark. Rachel staggered, choking on sobs. No, I don't. Remember, I couldn't. Daniel stopped suddenly, his eyes hollow with sorrow. You don't remember, because you let yourself forget. But the Hollow One remembers. It marked you because you lived while I drowned. You owe it a soul, Rachel. The footsteps behind them grew louder. The Hollowed were closing in. Rachel shook her head violently, her voice breaking. No, that's not Farai. Was a child, I didn't choose this. Daniel's grip tightened, his voice turning cold. Choice doesn't matter here. Debt does. And the mile only ends one way. You return what was stolen. Rachel's heart pounded in her ears. Then what happens if I don't? The hooded man's voice echoed suddenly from the mist, though his body was nowhere to be seen. Then you'll walk the mile forever. Hollow, like the rest of them. Rachel screamed, clutching her head as the whispers of the drowned swelled around her. Her name, over and over. Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. Daniel's face twisted, his voice raw. Give yourself up. End the debt, or I'll take what should have been mine. His hands suddenly tightened around her wrist, too strong, too cold. His face warped, dripping water, his eyes blackening like the hollowed dot. Rachel cried out, struggling. "You're not him, you're not Daniel." The road cracked. Beneath them, glowing shards flying into the mist. The hollowed howled, reaching with skeletal hands. The hooded man appeared once more at the edge of the path, his slit throat spilling black water. He extended a pale hand to Rachel. "You can't run anymore," he whispered. "Choose your soul, or his." Rachel's vision swam, her body trembling, her lungs filling with phantom water. Daniel's face twisted into something monstrous, his jaw splitting wide like the others. He roared, "You owe me." The hollowed surged forward, clawing onto the road as it shattered beneath them. Rachel's scream ripped through the void as she was pulled in two directions toward Daniel. Toward the hooded man, toward the abyss below, and then the road collapsed. Rachel tumbled into the dark, the glowing road shattering into fragments around her like falling stars. She braced for the plunge into endless water, but instead, she hit solid ground. The mist cleared, revealing a black shoreline. The lake stretched endlessly in every direction, its surface rippling though there was no wind. The sky above was empty, a pale void. The hollowed circled her at the water's edge, their eyeless faces tilted toward her, whispering her name like a lullaby. Across the shore stood Daniel, no longer dripping, no longer monstrous. Just a boy, 10 years old, the age he'd drowned. His small frame shook as he stared at her, eyes wide and wet. "Why did you leave me?" he asked softly. Rachel's knees buckled. Tears streamed down her face. "I didn't. I was pulled out. I couldn't reach you. You didn't even look back," Daniel whispered. His voice trembled like a child's, but his eyes glowed faintly with the hollow one's mark. "You lived." I sank. Rachel's chest ached, the burning at her collarbone searing through flesh. The hooded man stepped out of the mist beside Daniel, his voice low, unyielding. "A debt must be paid. One soul for another. That is the law of the mile." Rachel's heart pounded. She looked at her brother, fragile, broken, still that drowning boy, and she knew she couldn't let him remain here, not when she had been the one to walk away. Her voice cracked. "Take me instead." The hooded man tilted his head. "Will you give it freely?" Rachel swallowed hard, tears burning her eyes. She nodded, double quotes, "Yes, my life for his." The mark on her collarbone flared blinding white. Her body arched in agony as water filled her lungs. She choked, gasped, clawed at her throat, drowning on dry land. The hollowed shrieked in ecstasy. The boy Daniel collapsed to his knees, crying out as his form flickered, flesh returning, his body restored. Rachel reached for him, choking. "Live for me." Her chest collapsed with one final breath. Her body went still. The hooded man touched Daniel's shoulder. "The debt is settled." The mist dissolved. The hollowed faded into the lake. Daniel opened his eyes. He was lying on the edge of Lake Moreau, coughing up water. The night air was sharp and real. The stars gleamed above him. He was alive, but Rachel's body was nowhere. Not even a ripple disturbed the lake. 1 week later, local news flashed across every channel. Miracle survivor found near Lake Moreau, Daniel Klein, missing for over 20 years, discovered alive and in perfect health. Authorities baffled. Daniel sat in a hospital room, staring at his hands. He was 30, though in his mind, only a boy's memory lingered. He could still feel Rachel's hand slipping away. At night, he dreamed of the hollow mile, the whispers, the hooded man, the debt, and sometimes, when the room was quiet, he swore he heard Rachel's voice through the vents. "Run, Daniel. Don't look back.